Something is moving through our solar system right now that has NASA scientists completely baffled. A massive object from another star system that should be behaving like every other comet we've ever seen. Except it's not. And what they discovered about it changes everything we thought we knew about visitors from deep space. The object is called 3I divided by Atlas. And when I tell you what makes it different, you're going to understand why some of the world's top astrophysicists are seriously asking whether this thing might not be natural at all. We're talking about an interstellar traveler that's breaking the fundamental laws of physics as we know them. It's spewing water like a fire hose while staying perfectly on course. It's showing metals that shouldn't exist together in nature. And its trajectory through our solar system is so precise that the odds of it happening by chance are basically zero. By the end of this video, you're going to see why this object has sparked one of the biggest scientific debates in modern astronomy, and why at least one Harvard professor is putting a 30 to 40% chance on this being our first confirmed encounter with alien technology. Let me start with what initially seemed like just a strange observation. When 3I divided by Atlas was first spotted back in 2024, astronomers immediately knew it was special because it was only the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected entering our solar system. The first was Oumuamua in 2017, which caused its own controversy. The second was 2I divided by Borisov in 2019. Which acted like a normal comet. So everyone was watching 3I divided by Atlas closely to see what secrets it might reveal about other star systems. But then something weird started happening, or more accurately, something weird didn't happen. You see, when comets get close to the sun, they heat up and start releasing gases and dust. This creates those beautiful tails we all know about. But it also does something else that most people don't realize. Those jets of gas shooting off the comet's surface act like tiny rocket engines. They push the comet slightly off course. It's called non-gravitational acceleration, and it's completely predictable. Every single comet we've ever studied does this. It's basic physics. Except 3I divided by Atlas doesn't. This thing is releasing material at an absolutely insane rate. We're talking about 40 kilograms of water per second. To put that in perspective, imagine a fire hose on full blast, except it's shooting into space and it never stops. NASA's Swift Observatory detected this massive outgassing happening when the object was still almost 3 times farther from the sun than Earth is. Most comets at that distance are completely dormant, frozen solid. But 3I divided by Atlas was already active, already releasing enormous amounts of material. Here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Despite all that material blasting off its surface, creating what should be a powerful propulsion effect, the object shows virtually zero deviation from a purely gravitational trajectory. The upper limit on its non-gravitational acceleration is less than 3 times 10 to the negative 10th astronomical units per day squared. For anyone not drowning in astrophysics equations, that's essentially zero. That's like watching someone fire a massive rocket engine and seeing them not move at all. NASA scientists kept checking their calculations. They kept analyzing the data. Something had to be wrong. But the numbers kept coming back the same. This object was breaking the rules that govern every other comet in existence. So they started asking a question that seemed impossible. What if this thing is so massive that even those powerful jets can't move it? What if we completely miscalculated how big it actually is? When Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb and his team started crunching the numbers with this new assumption, they arrived at a figure that stunned the scientific community. To explain the lack of non-gravitational acceleration, 3I divided by Atlas would need to have a mass exceeding 33 billion tons. Its solid nucleus would need to be at least 5 kilometers across. Some estimates put it at potentially 20 kilometers in diameter. To understand how shocking this is, you need to know that this makes 3I divided by Atlas potentially 100,000 times more massive than the previous interstellar visitors like Oumuamua, and 2I divided by Borisov 100,000 times. This isn't just a little bigger. This is a completely different category of object. And here's what makes it even stranger. Statistically speaking, we should have detected thousands of smaller interstellar objects before ever encountering something this massive. The probability of discovering a giant like this before seeing the smaller, more common ones is incredibly low. It's like going fishing for the first time and immediately catching a whale while never seeing any regular fish. This size anomaly was just the first red flag. As researchers dug deeper into the data, they started finding more and more things that didn't add up. Professor Loeb identified 7 distinct anomalies that, when taken together, paint a picture of something that might not be natural at all. Let me walk you through each one, because the more you learn about this object, the stranger it gets. The second anomaly is the composition. When scientists analyzed the spectroscopic data, looking at the light reflected and emitted by 3I divided by Atlas, they found something that had never been seen before in any natural celestial body. The object was showing clear signatures of nickel emissions, but there was no corresponding iron, just nickel, nothing else. This is huge because in nature, nickel and iron almost always occur together. They're formed in the same stellar processes. Every asteroid, every comet, every planetary core we've ever studied shows both elements together if it shows either one at all. The ratio might vary, but they're always both present. It's one of the fundamental patterns of cosmic chemistry. Pure nickel emissions without iron is the kind of signature you'd expect from industrially manufactured alloys. It's what you'd see if someone deliberately separated and refined the metals. It's not what you see in natural formation processes. Several researchers have pointed out that this composition resembles materials that would be produced in advanced manufacturing, not in the chaotic environment of star and planet formation. But it gets even weirder with the composition. As 3I divided by Atlas got closer to the sun, the nickel to iron ratio started changing dramatically. Initially, scientists only detected nickel, pure nickel, no iron at all. But then, once the object got closer than 2.64 astronomical units from the sun, iron suddenly started showing up in the data. What could cause this kind of behavior? Why would iron only become detectable at a certain distance from the sun? Some scientists have suggested the presence of exotic organometallic compounds like nickel tetracarbonyl. These are incredibly rare in natural bodies. In fact, they're so rare that finding them in space is basically unheard of. But if you were building something and needed specific materials with particular properties, these are exactly the kinds of compounds you might use. The third anomaly is the water activity. And this one is absolutely baffling. Remember how I mentioned that 3I divided by Atlas was already producing a massive coma when it was first discovered at 4.5 astronomical units from the sun? Most comets at that distance are completely inactive. They're frozen solid. Water doesn't sublimate into gas until the comet gets much closer to the sun's heat. But 3I divided by Atlas was detected spewing water at 2.9 astronomical units out. That's nearly 3 times Earth's distance from the Sunday. At those temperatures, this level of water outgassing shouldn't be possible. The energy from the sun just isn't strong enough at that distance to cause this kind of activity in a normal comet. Some researchers have proposed that maybe the object has a different internal composition that allows it to be more active at greater distances. Maybe it has pockets of highly volatile materials that other comets don't have. But even those explanations struggle to account for the sheer volume of water being released. 40 kilograms per second is not a little bit of outgassing. That's a torrent. And here's something that really gets under your skin when you think about it. The James Webb Space Telescope analyzed the chemical composition of the material being released, and they found that 3I divided by Atlas has the highest carbon dioxide to water ratio ever observed in any comet. The CO2 to H2O mixing ratio is 7.6 plus or minus 0.3. That's 4.5 standard deviations above the trend for every known comet we've ever studied. Standard deviations are important here. When something is 4.5 standard deviations away from the norm, you're talking about something that should only happen by pure random chance once in every several million cases. This isn't just unusual. This is off the charts bizarre. The fourth anomaly is something called the anti-tail, and when I first read about this, I had to read it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. Every comet we've ever observed follows the same pattern. Material gets ejected from the surface, and solar radiation pressure pushes that material away from the sunday. That's why comet tails always point away from the sun, regardless of which direction the comet is actually traveling. It's one of the most fundamental, predictable behaviors of comets. 3I divided by Atlas has jets pointing forward in its direction of travel. It has an anti-tail. It's doing the exact opposite of what every single other comet does. This violates basic cometary physics. There's no conventional explanation for why a natural comet would exhibit this kind of behavior. The forces involved should make it impossible. Unless, and I want you to think about this for a second, unless those jets aren't random outgassing from a natural process. Unless they're being directed somehow, controlled, used for propulsion or course correction in a way that would point them in a specific direction regardless of where the sun is. The fifth anomaly is the orbital precision. And this is where things start to feel less like astronomy and more like detective work. When researchers calculated the trajectory of 3I divided by Atlas, they found that it's inclined just 5 degrees from the solar system's ecliptic plane. The ecliptic plane is basically the flat disk where all the planets orbit. It's the plane of our solar system. For a random object coming from interstellar space, the probability of having an orbit that closely aligned with our ecliptic plane is only 0.005%. That's 5 in 100,000. These odds are astronomically low, pun intended. Why does this matter? Because an orbit aligned with the ecliptic plane is exactly what you'd want if you were trying to visit the inner planets efficiently. It's the optimal path for accessing Venus, Earth, Mars, and Jupiter with minimal energy expenditure. It's the trajectory you'd plot if you were planning a mission, not drifting randomly through space. In fact, when trajectory analysts looked at where 3I divided by Atlas has been going, they found it's essentially doing a grand tour of the key planets in our solar system. It passed by Mars in early October 2024 at a distance of just 18.6 million miles. That's close enough for detailed observations with even modest instruments on Mars orbiters. It reached perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, on the 30th of October 2025 at 1.4 astronomical units. And its path gives optimal viewing angles of multiple planets. The statistical probability of all these orbital characteristics happening by random chance? Less than 0.005%. We're talking about odds so low that if you told a mathematician this happened naturally, They'd look at you like you just claimed to win the lottery 5 times in a row. The 6th anomaly is possibly the most eerie and controversial of all. When researchers traced 3I divided by Atlas's trajectory backward through space, trying to figure out where it came from, they made a discovery that sent chills through the astronomical community. The object's inbound trajectory aligns within 9 degrees of the famous WOW signal. If you don't know about the WOW signal, let me give you the quick version. In 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University detected a powerful, narrowband radio signal from space that lasted for 72 seconds. It was so strong and so unusual that the astronomer who found it on the printout literally wrote, "Wow," next to it, hence the name. For nearly 50 years, the WOW signal has remained one of the great mysteries of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Numerous attempts to detect it again have failed. Nobody knows what caused it. But it had all the characteristics of an artificial signal, something deliberately transmitted. Now, here's where your brain should be doing backflips. The probability of 3I divided by Atlas's trajectory randomly aligning with the WOW signal's origin point is approximately 0.6%. Not impossible, but highly improbable. And this is a massive if 3I divided by Atlas was the source of that signal back in 1977, it would have needed a nuclear reactor-level power source to broadcast across 600 astronomical units. Think about what that means. In 1977, something transmitted a powerful radio signal from deep space. Now, 48 years later, an object arrives from roughly that same direction. An object that's breaking all the rules of natural cosmic bodies. An object that some scientists think might be artificial. Is it a coincidence? Maybe. Probably. Even. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, the fact that the probabilities stack up the way they do, that's what's making scientists very, very uncomfortable. The 7th and final anomaly is about the object's age and origin. And this one takes us on a journey through cosmic time that's hard to wrap your head around. When researchers used data from the European Space Agency's Gaia telescope to trace 3I divided by Atlas's galactic journey backward through space, they went back 10 million years. 10 million years of traveling through the Milky Way. And you know what they found? Nothing. No evidence of any nearby star system it could have originated from. No parent star, no home system, no clear point of origin. It's as if this object just appeared in the galaxy without being born anywhere. The working theory now is that 3I divided by Atlas might be a relic from the early Milky Way, possibly 10 billion years old. To put that in perspective, our solar system is only about 4.6 billion years old. If these estimates are correct, 3I divided by Atlas predates our entire solar system by more than 3 billion years. It would have formed when the universe was young, when the first generation of planetary systems were developing around metal-poor stars. This makes it a time capsule from an era of cosmic history we can barely study otherwise. Objects that have survived for such an immense span of time are incredibly rare. Most things get destroyed, broken apart by collisions, torn apart by gravitational forces, consumed by stars. The fact that something could remain intact for 10 billion years suggests either extraordinary stability or some form of protection from the harsh interstellar environment. Now, I want to take a step back and look at all 7 of these anomalies together, because this is where Professor Avi Loeb's analysis gets really interesting. Loeb has proposed something called the Loeb scale for assessing potential technological artifacts. It's a framework for evaluating whether an object might be artificial rather than natural, and he's placed 3I divided by Atlas at level 2 on this scale. What does that mean? It means that based on the evidence, there's a 30 to 40% probability that this object has a non-natural origin. 30 to 40%. Those aren't fringe numbers. That's not a crackpot theory. That's a serious scientist at Harvard University saying there's a 1 in 3 chance we're looking at alien technology. Let me be clear about something. Most scientists still think 3i divided by Atlas is a natural object, just a really weird one. There are researchers working on alternative explanations for each of these anomalies. Maybe the composition is explained by unusual formation conditions. Maybe the orbit is just a statistical fluke. Maybe the lack of non-gravitational acceleration is due to some internal structure we don't understand yet. But here's the problem. You have to explain all 7 anomalies simultaneously. And the more conventional explanations you stack up, the more you're asking for one coincidence after another after another. At some point, Occam's razor starts cutting the other way. At some point, one extraordinary explanation starts to seem more plausible than 7 separate unlikely natural explanations. This is why the scientific community is so divided on 3i divided by Atlas. It's not that anyone can prove it's artificial. It's that the natural explanations are straining credibility when you look at the complete picture. So, what has NASA actually done about all this? How is the scientific establishment responding to an object that just might, be the most important discovery in human history? The response has been massive. NASA has deployed multiple space telescopes to study 3i divided by Atlas, including the Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, and the Swift Observatory. These are the heavy hitters, the most powerful instruments we have for studying distant objects, and they're all pointed at this thing. The agency's Mars orbiters have also been involved. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter and Mars Express both captured images as 3i divided by Atlas passed within range. Even the Perseverance rover on Mars's surface managed to snap some shots. Everyone who has a telescope capable of seeing this object is looking at it. The observations during perihelion on the 30th of October 2025 were particularly critical. That's when the object was closest to the sun and most active. Scientists got the best data during that window. After perihelion, 3i divided by Atlas passed behind the sun from Earth's perspective, which made direct observation temporarily impossible. But spacecraft like Europa Clipper, which is on its way to Jupiter, continued monitoring from different angles. By December 2025, Earth-based telescopes regained visibility, and observations continued. Every piece of data is being analyzed, reanalyzed, and debated. Papers are being published. Conferences are being held. The scientific community is engaged in one of the most intense periods of scrutiny any cosmic object has ever received. But here's what's really interesting. NASA has been very careful about its public statements. They're not saying it's aliens, but they're also not dismissing the possibility. They're presenting the data, acknowledging the anomalies, and saying we need more information. That's actually a pretty significant stance, because historically, NASA has been quite conservative about entertaining extraterrestrial technology hypotheses. The fact that they're keeping an open mind, the fact that Loeb's papers on the technological hypothesis are being taken seriously rather than laughed out of the room, that tells you something about how unusual this situation really is. There have been calls for continuous monitoring of 3i divided by Atlas for electromagnetic emissions. If this thing is artificial, if it's some kind of probe or vessel, it might be transmitting data. It might be communicating. Radio telescopes are being tasked with listening for any signals coming from the object's location. So far, nothing has been detected. But the search continues. And think about what we're really doing here. We're treating an object in our solar system like a potential alien spacecraft. We're listening for alien signals. This isn't science fiction anymore. This is actually happening right now based on real observations and real data. The kinetic energy of this object is staggering, by the way. At its current velocity and mass, 3I divided by Atlas is carrying kinetic energy equivalent to 667 million Hiroshima bombs. That's not a threat. It's not on a collision course with Earth, but it illustrates just how massive and powerful this thing is. If it is artificial, if it's a constructed object, the engineering required to build something that size and accelerate it to those speeds would be almost beyond comprehension. So where does all this leave us? What are we supposed to make of 3I divided by Atlas? Here's what we know for certain. This object is displaying behaviors and characteristics that have never been seen before in any comet or asteroid we've ever studied. It's breaking fundamental rules of physics as they apply to natural bodies. Its size, composition, activity level, orbital precision, and possible connection to historical anomalies like the WOW signal all point to something extraordinary. We have two broad possibilities. Either 3I divided by Atlas is a natural object with a combination of properties so unusual that we need to completely revise our understanding of comet formation, interstellar objects, and planetary system evolution. Or it's artificial, a probe or vessel from another civilization, possibly billions of years old, passing through our solar system on a mission we can only guess at. Both explanations are extraordinary. Both require us to expand our thinking about what's possible. The natural explanation asks us to accept a statistical nightmare of coincidences and unprecedented characteristics. The artificial explanation asks us to accept that we're not alone in the universe and that someone else's technology is visiting our cosmic neighborhood. What I find most fascinating is that we're living through this in real time. This isn't ancient history. This isn't something we're learning about from old records. Right now, as you watch this video, that object is out there moving through space. Telescopes are tracking it. Scientists are analyzing new data every day. We might get an answer to this mystery. Maybe not a definitive answer, but more information that pushes us closer to understanding what we're really looking at. The implications go far beyond just this one object. If 3I divided by Atlas turns out to be natural despite all its weird properties, that tells us that planetary formation and cosmic evolution are far stranger and more diverse than we ever imagined. There are types of objects and processes out there that we haven't even begun to understand. Our models need updating. Our assumptions need challenging. If it turns out to be artificial, well, that changes everything. It means we're not the first technological civilization in the galaxy. It means someone else has mastered interstellar travel. It means that somewhere out there, possibly billions of years ago, beings capable of building something like this existed. And maybe they still do. It also means that the universe is far more active, far more populated than we've assumed. If we can detect one of these things passing through, how many others might there be that we've missed? How common is interstellar travel? How many civilizations have risen and fallen while we were still single-celled organisms swimming in Earth's oceans? 3I divided by Atlas forces us to confront the fundamental question of our place in the cosmos. Are we alone? Are we typical? Are we late to the party, arriving in a galaxy that's already been explored and mapped by others who came before us? Or are we among the first, the pioneers, the ones who will eventually build our own probes to send to other star systems? We don't have answers yet, but the fact that we're asking these questions based on real observations of a real object, not just philosophical speculation, that's significant. That's historic. Whatever 3 I divided by Atlas turns out to be, its passage through our solar system marks a turning point. It's the moment when humanity had to seriously grapple with the possibility that we're looking at alien technology. Not in a movie, not in a book. In real life, with real telescopes and real data. The truth about this object might take years to determine, maybe decades. Maybe we'll never know for certain, but the journey of discovery, the process of elimination, the careful scientific work being done to understand it, that's valuable regardless of the final answer. We're witnessing cosmic archaeology in action. We're seeing the scientific method applied to one of the biggest questions humanity has ever asked. And we're learning that the universe is far stranger, far more surprising, and far more wonderful than we ever dreamed. Subscribe for more mysteries from beyond our solar system. Retree!